Welcome to the Stocks on the Rock Show. Whether you like it neat, on the rocks, chilled, or warm, everybody's happier when there's money in their account and a drink in their glass. Let's get started. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Stocks on the Rocks, where we talk about two of my favorite things around a good drink and a good investment opportunity. Well, today we're going to talk about something unique. From a listener request, we're talking tequila. I am not a tequila connoisseur, but today we're going to talk a little bit about Don Julio Anejo. This is an old bottle. The new bottles look a little bit different. And the stock we're going to talk about is Peloton. Yep, brand new, just IPO'd back in September of 2019. And so it's a fairly new stock, but we're going to talk about it anyway. If you're new to the channel, do me a favor, smash that the like button, the notification bell, all that fun stuff. Become a subscriber. And then if you have a specific stock or a spirit you'd like us to review, do me a favor, that little comment section down below, stick it down there. It'd be great to hear. So we're going to start by talking about Don Julio. Now, Don Julio Tequila, Don Julio himself, the man, the myth, the legend, I think. He was only 17 years old when he started distilling tequila, and he started distilling tequila at the age of 17, and his distillery was called La Primavera, which I think is Spanish for Mexican fighting chicken. Oh wait, that's El Diablo. No, just kidding, too much Ricky Bobby. But the distillery, La Primavera, was the name of the tequila until 1987 when it got rebranded with the Don Julio brand. Now, there's a lot of confusion about tequilas because a lot of people don't have the basic education of what are different in tequilas. So this one is an añejo. Now, there's a couple of different types of tequilas, and it's good to at least have an idea of what they are. So the first one that's probably most common is you'll hear the blanco or the silver tequila. And a blanco or a silver tequila is going to be basically clear because tequila itself should be clear. It's actually the way it's aged. It's kind of like whiskey in that way, right? It's going to be a clearly distilled spirit as it comes out. Now, a blanco or a silver tequila is going to not have no aging, and so it's going to be the closest thing to the blue agave. It's going to be the closest thing and have the most natural agave flavors in it. Now, these are the ones that I think a lot of people tend to use for margaritas and things like that. Now, what's the difference in a silver tequila and a gold? Well, it would make you think that the gold is better. You would be wrong. The gold is usually the cheap stuff. When you think, I know growing up as a kid, everybody talked about Cuervo Gold. Well, Cuervo Gold in my mind is, it's horrendous. But that's because it's typically silver tequila that's had caramel coloring added to it or sugars added to it. Or sometimes they'll even add some oak flavors to it to make it seem like an older tequila. So to me, if you see a gold tequila, that's not necessarily a good thing. When we're looking at our tequilas, we want to look at reposado. We want to look at the reposado tequilas. We want to look at the añejos and the extra añejo. Those are really the three different ones. So you'll hear maybe a joven tequila. That's oftentimes just a gold tequila. It's a silver that's been colored. But when you start to look at them, the first one is the reposado. Now the reposado is going to be aged anywhere from 2 months to a year. So something that's aged 2 months to a year will be a reposado tequila, and it's typically aged in American oak barrels. Sometimes it'll be aged in French oak barrels, but it's an oak barrel aging process, which gives it a little bit of a color. It's not going to be too dark of a color because it only has less than a year to age. Now, after it's aged for longer than a year, it becomes an añejo, and that's what we have here is the Don Julio Anejo. Now, this is aged 18 months. This particular one is aged 18 months, but añejo is anything that's 12 to 36 months. So 12 to 36 month aging process would be an añejo tequila. And then an extra añejo would be aged over 3 years inside those oak barrels. Now, I will tell you, I am not a tequila connoisseur. My wife, she's got tequila game. Like, she knows what she's doing. It's not been my thing, but I thought, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it with an añejo, so it's more like a whiskey. And I'm thinking of it more like a whiskey and some of the flavorings that it picks up. So here is the añejo tequila, and it's kind of hard to see it from back here. I took a still shot, which we'll maybe post up to kind of get the color. The coloring of this is a very, very light color. Matter of fact, when I look at the coloring on here, It's not golden at all. It's a very very light color. Matter of fact, it looks a lot more like apple juice, is what I would say. And when I go with this kind of on the nose, this you can definitely get like citrus notes with it, and a little bit of caramel, but not a ton. I mean, it's the agave that kind of hits you immediately. Now, on the taste, I really enjoy it. I've never been I think I might become a tequila fan. I've never been much of a tequila fan, but I kind of like this. Just straight up, just drinking this directly. Now, this being an añejo is going to be a bit smoother than, say, drinking a silver or drinking, a Cuervo Gold. But this has a really nice, neat finish to it. It's very clean. I did bring a big cube if I wanted to try it on the rocks, but I got to tell you, I kind of like this just straight up. I think it gives a lot of good flavoring. And so as I sip this, there's definitely like a butterscotch flavoring, and honey. Lots of honey notes I think are in here. And the longer you have it, the sweetness kind of comes through. So all I'm doing is taking a tiny sip, enough to kind of coat the mouth. So if you've never been a tequila person, or you think tequila is only good for margaritas, then stick to the silvers, stick to the blancos for margaritas and mixed drinks. But if you want to try a sipping tequila, the Don Julio Anejo is a good one. I find this to be a nice little entry level one. I think you can get this bottle for around $50. If you're gonna sip a tequila, spend the money and get a decent one to make it worthwhile. If you just want to drink margaritas, then certainly get a handle of some silver stuff to make it a little bit easier. So, well, when the good news about this is that if you drink just it straight up, then you don't gain a whole lot of calories. Whereas if you do with the margarita, right? The margaritas are typically full of sugar and all those things. Then you're going to gain a lot of calories. And if you gain all those calories, you're going to need to burn them off. And how do you burn them off? Well, you exercise. And that moves us to our stock. Let's talk about our stock. Our stock today is Peloton. Now, Peloton is a little different than most of the stocks we've done on the show, because most of the stocks we've done on the show have been, they've been around for years and years and years. I mean, heck, we did Ford, which has been around forever, and GE. But today we're talking Peloton, which is a brand new IPO. Now, here's the funniest thing about Peloton. So I did the MS 150 ride here in Houston last year, and I thought, well, I need to exercise and get better and exercise and get ready for this. So I looked at a Peloton, and once I realized they were $2,500, I was not interested in that. I thought, well, I can just bike on my own for nothing. But Peloton has gotten kind of a cult-like following, if you will. And if you notice, all their ads, I don't think I've got a floor-to-ceiling window quite large enough for a Peloton, because that's kind of what you see in all the ads, right? And Peloton they consider themselves a media company. They do not consider themselves an exercise company, which is unique. They were founded in 2012. They didn't sell their first bike until 2014. But really the thing about Peloton, it's not just the bike itself. While the bike is very smooth and easy to use, and I have ridden one, it's smooth, it's easy to use, it's a very simple piece of machinery. It adjusts up and down. It's very interactive with the screen in front of it. But where their money's really made is in the media portion, which is a $39 a month subscription in order to exercise with a live trainer or to have recorded classes. And then what it does is it kind of ranks you among others. It creates the social aspect along with the live class aspect and motivation. And I think there's a lot of market for that. And their first year, they had 11,000 subscribers that were paying $30 a month, and it also paid about $2,500 for one of these bikes. Well, by 2019, they're up to over 550,000 subscribers. So that's 500,000 subscribers that they have, and they're from a standpoint of a net promoter score, meaning how many people would recommend that brand to others. They're one of, if not the highest company in the world with a net promoter score. They have raving fans among their client base. That's the good. Here's the bad. So they want to expand, and they want to expand because they think that there's 64 million households that this becomes a viable market. And they believe that this is a 64 million household market, according to from what I can see on their site, and from most of their interviews with their CEO. They think it's a 64 million household market. They're only in 550,000 or so, and that's just in the U.S., right? And then they go internationally. So what do you do when your company wants to grow? Well, you have rounds of funding, and they had 7 rounds of private funding before finally going public. And they went public in September of 2012. They IPO'd at $29 a share, and immediately in the first day it went down to 26. The stock dropped pretty hard on the initial IPO, and as that IPO base kind of fell, the first earnings came out and they lost money. Now, they had doubled in revenue from 2018 to 2019, which is amazing, right before the IPO, but their losses quadrupled. So they doubled in revenue, but their losses quadrupled. And that was really because of the expense of marketing, right? And now this is a pretty crowded field. There are other companies that are in suits with Peloton. Peloton is suing other companies that are kind of doing the knockoff version, right? They're creating a social site. And Peloton essentially patented. They went out and patented exercising online with a live trainer and then having social tracking. Well, there's some lawsuits that says that that's not a valid patent, and all of those are currently in the courts. And they made a lot of news this year, in the holiday season of 2019, with their latest holiday ad. And it came out, and it's about a husband and wife, and I guess the husband buys the wife a Peloton for Christmas, and it's her kind of selfieing herself throughout the year, and there was a lot of backlash because people said that it was negative body image, and that it was unchecked privilege, and it was gross marital dynamics. Now, I don't get into politics, but I think that's ridiculous. But anyway, the news really kind of jumped this stock into my mindset. And so I thought, let's take a look at the stock and see what the picture that the stock is telling me. So when I look at the fundamentals are ugly. There's no question. The fundamentals are ugly. The stock's losing money, but they're not looking at profitability. They're looking at growth. So they're deep in an investment mode. And as we look at this, kind of as we're in the throngs of our Santa Claus rally, the stock has gone from that $29 IPO. Take a look at this daily chart. Now on the daily chart, we see that we've gone from that $29 IPO. We pulled back a little bit, and the stock has really given a big rally, as high as 37. Now, after all of the social media buzz about the latest marketing, it pulled back for a couple of days. And it looks like it's giving a pretty decent entry potential for a small time frame opportunity. But here's the way I look at it. Where's my overhead resistance? Well, it doesn't exist. And so while the stock is currently at a fairly low price, I look at it and say, well, what are the opportunities? Well, from a technical perspective, if I start to layer in some indicators, the only indicator I can layer in is a 20-day moving average. I can't even get a 50-day moving average yet because it's still too new of a stock. And so it's slightly above a rising 20-day moving average, as the stock has had a pretty strong November along with the rest of the market, but it's actually outperforming the market in the month of November, and November was a pretty gangbuster month for the markets in general. But here's where I really found the best opportunity for potential long-term gain. So we went out and said, if I'm interested in Peloton, but I don't necessarily want to own the stock, but I want to take advantage of what might be a parabolic run, which I think it could be. You never know, but I'm not willing to bet the farm. This is where it becomes a good opportunity to look at options. So if I look at options on Peloton, and I went all the way out to April of next year, so I went to April of 2020, which gives me over 100 days of time in this position. Now, typically when we look at an options chain, we talk about options in 3 ways. There's in the money, at the money, and out of the money options. And in the money options essentially means that you can brag about your stock. So for example, if the stock is trading at 32 and I buy a $25 call, I can brag about it because I can say I have the right to buy the stock at 25 even though it's trading at 32. That's in the money. At the money would be that the stock is trading at 32 when I buy the 32 call. So essentially that's the current price. And then out of the money, there's no reason to brag about it because I don't really have anything to brag about, right? So if I buy the 38 call and the currently trading at 32, I can't go out and brag, well, I've got the right to buy it at 38 because I could just go buy it off the market at 32. Well, typically, when I look at options, we look at what's called delta. Now, delta is the rate of change. And if you're unsure about how options work, go to tradersarmy.com. We've got some introductory options courses you can take to really learn a little bit more about what we do with options. But the delta is the rate of change of the option relative to a $1 move in the stock. And typically, an at-the-money option is going to have a delta of about 50, meaning for every dollar the stock moves, the option is going to move 50 cents. Well, something very unique about Peloton is when I looked at the options chain, the out-of-the-money options have a delta of 50. So what that means is that I can actually go out of the money, buy a slightly lower cost option, and still generate 50 cents on the dollar of the underlying securities movement. This is rare. This doesn't happen very often. And when this does, it gives us the opportunity to take advantage of some of these moves that could become bigger, more parabolic moves. Now, from a fundamental basis, I understand the stock still hasn't made money, but neither has Tesla, right? I mean, there's a lot of stocks that are not yet profitable but have still been able to show some rally. And so I'm not saying this is a long-term investment opportunity. I'm not even saying you might want to step in and buy the stock as an investor. What I am saying is, as a pure speculative play with no overhead resistance, the news dropping the price down a little bit, it might make it a bit more attractive. Now, there's probably an area in the stock where you'd say, well, if it goes below, say, 30 or 28, I'd want to get out of that call anyway. So I've got a stop loss order in place on the call itself. But overall, I think this could be a decent setup to allow you to get in at what could become a hot stock. It's not there yet. Heck, it's not even close, but I like the way it sets up. So thanks to a couple subscribers that gave me the ideas for both Peloton and the tequila. And so I'd like you to let me know what's a stock that you'd like to see. Do me a favor, put it in the comment section down below. And a security, something that you'd like to see. And what are your thoughts on Peloton? Do you think Peloton can move a bit higher? Do you think it could be a value at this point? Who knows what's going to happen with the Christmas season? Maybe that viral ad's enough for them to get them going. You know what they say, any news is good news. So until next week, everybody, cheers.